Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Cheers, everybody. We're actually live from the Aesthetics Clinic in Beaconsfield on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. On behalf of my entire team and Jonathan, I would like to wish you all a fabulous day, and we're here to have a very exciting and innovative first ever physical event live at the clinic. So I'm so honored and so excited to welcome right here at Aesthetics in Beaconsfield and just the United Kingdom as a whole.
Oh goodness.
Oh goodness.
No pressure.
The creators, the founders, the CEO, and the inventor of our very latest light therapy that we introduced to Aesthetics a year and a half ago. So a big welcome to Mr. Patrick Johnson, the creator, inventor, and founder of our Celluma light therapy. Big welcome to you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Yes, lovely to have you here.
It's wonderful to be here.
And I'd also like to say a very warm welcome to Denise Ryan, who is brand manager, vice president of Celluma, and all the way from California.
All the way from California.
All the way from California.
You
yes.
get in a plane, 10 hours later you're here.
And you're here.
We didn't bring the weather back.
Sorry.
The weather will come, for
Yeah.
sure. So big welcome to you both, Patrick and Denise. We're so excited to have you here. And also, I have to say a very, very warm welcome to all of our amazing patients for taking the time to come out and spend some time with us on our first physical event. It's great to see so many faces and names that we recognize, that we see so often here at the clinic, friends of ours as well. And so we'd just like to extend, on behalf of my team, a very warm welcome to each and every one of you here today. And to my team, thank you for the amazing setup. So Beaconsfield, you're in for a treat because we're going to be talking to Patrick and Denise all about low-level light therapy, all about LED and demystifying what our Celluma device truly does. And what has been very unique and special about this entire journey for me, Patrick, and to us, treating our patients and to achieving results, is the science.
Mm-hmm.
We always are drawn to the science. Without science, we can't get a deeper understanding of tissues and what we can do to create comfort and to create results, and to also deliver a great experience, all at the same time. You know, we don't want to have downtime. We don't want to have a bad experience in order to get results. We want to try and enjoy these processes, don't we?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And what really has drawn me to light as a whole is the fact that the journey of understanding light has been one that has been very enlightening. I think we don't understand the potentials of a lot of things that we bring into our homes and in our practices. So today is all about demystifying what this therapy can really do. So I really look forward to you taking our patients on that journey.
Okay, great.
Lovely. So can you please share with us, Patrick, just a little bit about you and your company, and Denise first and foremost?
Yeah, absolutely. We founded BioPhotos 11 years ago, and prior to that I was an executive officer in a publicly traded company in the orthopedics industry, of the medical device industry. And I was on a long walk on a beach in Hawaii, reflecting on my pending 50th birthday, and sort of decided that what I was doing, despite being successful at it, wasn't what I wanted as my professional legacy. I wanted to make a bigger contribution to the wellness of the world, and one that was non-invasive and non-toxic, which is the exact opposite of orthopedics. And so I came home and I quit my job, which I wouldn't recommend at the height of a great recession in retrospect. But it allowed me the time to really take a look and find a nugget around which to build a company. And I literally stumbled on the clinical literature on low-level light therapy, which is light energy devices that emit less than a watt of power, and came to it very skeptically. Someone were to tell me that you could heal the body with just light energy, it was like, no, that can't be right. You have to cut and stitch and pull and peel, and so I spent 3 months looking into, at that time, the more than 3,000 papers on low-level light energy, and was struck by the science, both the depth and breadth of the science, as well as the really prestigious institutions the research was emitting from. And so it looked like an opportunity to build a company around. And so, and to build a company that could provide the therapeutic benefits of light therapy to the masses. Because at that point, the products that were actually practicing the science were very expensive, $25,000 to $50,000. And so that left a lot of people without access to the benefit of that technology. And so we really set off on, trying to develop a device that was, effective, safe, and affordable. And it's turned out okay. It turns out it was a worthy cause to take on. So.
And what were those machines being used for when you discovered them?
Well, the predecessors to low-level light therapy were photodynamic therapy, which was used in aesthetics for triggering topically applied products. So products that are photosensitive and where you trigger a chemical reaction with light energy. Those companies initially entered the low-level light therapy world and brought that product paradigm into low-level light therapy. But it was a very expensive paradigm because when you're trying to trigger photosensitive materials, you need a lot of energy and you need very precise wavelengths of light. And that isn't necessarily a good thing in low-level light therapy like the Celluma. Probably the best way to understand it is low-level light therapy is the equivalent of photosynthesis for mammals. And I say mammals because it turns out animals love light therapy as much as humans do. And if you have one at home, you will have to fight your cat for your Celluma.
Or dogs.
Or dogs.
Or dogs.
Confirm that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, we are reestablishing normal cellular function by delivering therapeutic wavelengths of light that you get when you walk out in the sun, if the sun's out. But we've isolated out the bad wavelengths and focused on the therapeutic wavelengths. So we're using light energy to trigger biochemical reactions inside of the body that reestablishes normal cellular function, specifically the mitochondrial process. In all of our cells, there's an organelle called the mitochondria, and you can think of it as the cellular powerhouses.
Yeah.
It's where cellular energy is produced through synthesizing oxygen and glucose, and that process breaks down over time. Arguably, the definition of aging is the degradation of the mitochondria process. So we're using light energy, non-invasively, non-toxically, to turn back on normal cellular function and get your body back to healing the way it was designed. And that's pretty much all we're doing.
Well, that's a lot in itself, actually.
It's complicated.
I think.
Yeah. It's simple but
Who would want that?
complicated.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I'll get to that point. There's so many things I want to ask you already, but let's get to that point, because I always say to patients, aging is a loss of energy. We're all tired, or some of us more than others, but we all get tired, and we don't mean just sleepy tired. We are naturally actually depleting. So we understand from aesthetics and skin that we're losing 1% of collagen, 1% elastin, 1% hyaluronic acid, these kind of proteins and sugars in the skin. So we almost understand that really well now because we're becoming more educated in skin science. We also know that we're going to get shorter as we age. So there's an element of bony decay, 1%. We also know that we're going to be changing muscle tone, sarcopenia, 1%. So then we think of these organelles, these powerhouses, these battery centers, which are these mitochondria, and they're also losing their powerhouse function. So I'm sure they're probably going down 1% every year, sometimes
certainly.
accelerated.
Yeah.
So this accelerated causes stress, sun, excessive sugar, all of those kind of things. And I'm sure the pandemic in its own right has probably turbocharged the deceleration of all of us as a unit anyway. So that's a really interesting point, because that's what really made it, again, so unique for me to bring this in.
Yeah, and
that specific point.
Yeah, and the the clinical literature that's most relevant to this conversation actually came out of NASA and the Marshall Deep Space Exploration Studies. There's a lot of challenges sending the human body into a zero gravity environment for 2.5 years, which is what you have to do if you want to go to Mars. And what NASA discovered, which kind of makes sense, is as biological organisms that evolved on the face of the Earth, our bodies at a cellular level rely on Earth's gravity. When you take the body out of Earth's gravity, cellular function doesn't. And so NASA recognized that, and what happens is the body enters a state of hyper aging. So all of the things you just described, bone entrophy, muscle entrophy, suboptimal performance of the respiratory system, suboptimal performance of the vascular system, that happens to astronauts at a very high rate. And so it was actually NASA who developed the high intensity LED technology to counter the effects of zero gravity environment on astronauts, which then has a whole bunch of implications back here, because we all, as the result of all kinds of environmental insults, disease, illness, injury, bad behavioral habits, or just the normal wearing out over time, we can benefit from that technology. So that's really what's brought light therapy to us. And then in aesthetics, as you mentioned, fibroblast cells are responsible for the production of collagen and elastin, which are the two most important proteins in connective tissue as well as skin health. And so when we all reach the age of about 40, our fibroblast cells sort of say, I'm going into retirement. That's enough. And they stop producing that collagen and elastin, and as a result, we get fine lines and wrinkles in our skin. Injuries don't heal as quickly. When we're 17 and we roll an ankle, the coach tells us to run it off. When we're 57 and we roll an ankle, we call the orthopedic surgeon.
Absolutely.
Because our bodies just
Don't
can't
heal.
they don't heal. And so that's really the main benefit of low level light therapy is just getting the body back to its earlier, younger ability to heal itself.
Correct.
And providing it the energy to do that. I'm not sure if that was an answer to a question.
It was. Did everyone get it? Yes. Good. As long as everybody gets it, then I think we're good.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
It's your mission to make everyone aware of this, because obviously, a lot of people know about it, but
Right.
now it's well, from what you've said, this is life changing.
Yeah, it's fundamentally it was getting the world back to normal aging. Well, then everybody benefits from it, and it's not an expensive technology, and it's not a complicated technology. The Celluma is a Class 2 medical device, so it's highly regulated around the world, but it's also has regulatory credentials that allows us to be used by non-clinically trained individuals. So you can all have it at home, whether it's for improving, aesthetic appearance, or for managing aches and pains, or for, treating acne in teenagers, or hair restoration. 40% of women over the age of 40, have hair loss. And that's a function of the normal aging process and hormonal changes, and it turns out that we can reverse that process with light therapy. So there probably is not many people who couldn't benefit by having access to it. And for me, sort of bringing the conversation full circle, having a legacy where I've impacted millions or hundreds of millions of people by giving them access to a wellness technology that doesn't require them checking in the hospital, that'll be a good one for me.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And I think
If I'm not jumping the gun, can you explain what the different light colours do and how they
That's a
affect
great
the cells?
Yeah, good question.
Great question.
So wavelength of light energy occurs to us as different colors. And so, you know, if you look at the light spectrum, we sort of go from blue, as we come out of ultraviolet light, you go from blue to greens to yellows to reds to near infrared, which is no longer visible to the human eye, but animals can see it and your iPhone can see it. The wavelength determines the depth of penetration of the light energy.
Right.
So depending upon the condition we're treating, we will use shorter or longer wavelengths of light. So for instance, blue light is a very short wavelength of light. And so we use it predominantly to treat conditions at the surface of the skin, like acne or eczema or psoriasis. Red light is a longer wavelength. It will penetrate between 2 and 8 millimeters below the surface of the skin. So that's down where all the fibroblast cells live. And so that's why there's an association between red light and anti-aging.
That's right.
Because we're activating the fibroblast cells and getting them back to work.
So that's the collagen layer. That's the
Yes.
that's the anti-wrinkle layer.
Oh,
Yes.
That's the one I've got it on.
That's
Yes.
the one we all. Linda, that's the one we all have it on.
Yeah. Well, and interestingly enough, it's also the dermal wound healing
Yeah.
light. You know, when we have a dermal injury, whether it's intentional or accidental or disease-based, what we want to do is supercharge the fibroblast cells so they produce the collagen and elastin, so we get a normal knitting of the dermal layer. But at the same time, we want to prohibit the production of myofibroblast cells, which are responsible for creating scar tissue.
Yes.
So, you know, light therapy is a great way not only to accelerate the closure of wounds, but also to minimize the scarring that would otherwise be created by
Yeah.
those wounds.
So that takes us to the point, actually. You've mentioned this really well, and Adrienne at the back is going to ask you a question about microneedling, where you're creating
Yeah.
wounds in
Yeah.
a good way. So we know that derma rolling and microneedling and, you know, these kind of collagen induction therapies are creating wounds. Is that producing harmful inflammation, or is it good inflammation? Adrienne, you had a point for Patrick.
I wanted to ask, how does Celluma work after microneedling and what are the benefits?
So this is that
Yeah,
point.
it's a great case study. Inflammation is the body's natural protection mechanism against further injury. When the body is injured, it triggers inflammatory processes, which can result in things like swelling. So when you twist your ankle, it swells up, so you'll stop walking on it, and it can't be further injured. The problem is that inflammatory process also retards cellular healing. So in aesthetics, to a great degree, we insult tissue in order to trigger a healing response on the part of the body, but we also trigger inflammation, which retards cellular healing. So we're working at cross purposes.
Yeah.
And so, you know, following any kind of injury to the skin, like microneedling, where we're creating, one, vias in the skin to push product deeper into the tissue,
Yes.
but two, we're also asking the body to heal. What we want to do is we want to first address the inflammatory process. We need to turn it off. And that's one of the benefits of low-level light therapy, because it's vasodilating. So it's going to open up the microvasculature. It's going to allow for a greater exchange of fluids to and away from the injury site. Again, it's going to stimulate the fibroblast cells, so you get a natural collagen knitting of the injury as it closes. And most importantly, there's a Lance Sutterfield is sort of the guru of microneedling. He basically says, if you're going to microneedle, immediately follow it with LED. And if you're not going to immediately follow it with LED, with light therapy, don't microneedle, because of the risk of creating so much inflammation and the potential for scar tissue. Because as I mentioned earlier, the injury creates the production of myofibroblast cells, which is what creates scar tissue. So we always, anytime we create a dermal injury, whether we're doing it with microneedling or a roller or a laser.
Lasers, yes.
We want to follow that immediately with low-level light therapy so that we knock down the inflammatory process and give the injured tissue the energy it needs to get back to work.
That was brilliantly described. I mean, I'm
Good question.
I'm so pleased we're all recording this because you could listen to it all over again. And I think it's so interesting, Patrick, because I'm sponging all of this.
Yeah.
And we didn't know this in 2007.
Yeah.
When I heard my first collagen induction therapy lecture, I just thought, wow, how innovative. And off we went with our rollers, rolling away. And because that was all we knew. We knew that we were creating trauma.
Right.
We knew we were triggering a natural wound healing pathway in the human being in order to heal and produce better collagen. And now we evolved that into the use of lasers. We've got microneedling with radio frequency. Cheryl Marshall-Williams does a lot of that. And we want to create this wound healing response. I think what we fail to recognize, but we're understanding much more nowadays in the last few years, is we want the good inflammation, but we don't want all the unnecessary harmful inflammation.
Yeah, I mean, I think to a
at.
great degree, inflammation's been used as a marker for the healing response on the part of the body.
Yes.
But it's that's the good part. The
Yes.
bad part is that it slows cellular healing, and
Yes.
so we need to address that.
Yes. So what we're doing when we're covering, because we've just started doing that now, Cheryl,
Yes.
haven't we?
With
Oh,
our intensives,
Yes.
we do 30 minutes afterwards, and it's so much calmer, and the patients recover so much quicker
Yeah.
yes.
than having days of redness. They now just leave actually a bit pink, but the next day they're fine,
Right.
Absolutely fine.
and
Right.
so much happier.
Yes.
And as aesthetic patients, as much as appearance is important, the social downtime,
Yes.
the recovery time is equally as important. So we don't want to just create a good result. We want the creation of the result to be a good experience.
Absolutely.
And the way we do that is by treating the injury that's going to result in the good result.
Yeah, because a lot of the patients have had it both ways,
Yeah.
and they can tell you that they much prefer it with the Celluma.
There's
Yeah,
a difference.
Yeah. Whatever you did,
Yes.
do that again.
Do that
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
And
So basically, Celluma's good for any treatment that you've had that's causing trauma, whether it be
Yeah, any insulting of the tissue, absolutely. Yeah.
so we can use it in clinic and at home. So I know you have one at home. We use it a lot in clinic at the moment. Interestingly, we've been treating patients post-treatment with Celluma, and aside from the redness going down, in about 6 to 7 minutes into the post-treatment Celluma, they all mentioned that the throbbing suddenly goes away, Patrick. The throbbing goes away. They suddenly become more comfortable.
Right.
Could you explain how and why that happens?
It's again, we're triggering vasodilation. The throbbing is coming from the constriction of the microvasculature, and that's the swelling. It's the collection of the fluids at the injury site. And so with the low-level light therapy, we're vasodilating the microvasculature, and the way we do that is we disassociate nitric oxide from the binding centers in cytochrome C oxidase.
Geeky.
Just
We're
in
liking
case,
all the geeky stuff.
just in case you were wondering,
Yes, exactly.
We're all recording this.
and so which creates more binding locations for the oxygen, which then releases the nitric oxide into the bloodstream. And there's Nobel laureate research on nitric oxide, not nitrous oxide, that's the laughing gas, nitric oxide, that basically everything that we do that's good for ourselves results in elevated nitric oxide levels in our blood. It's a natural occurring chemical in our blood. And so what we're doing is we're telling cytochrome C oxidase, which is the photoreceptor of light energy, to let go of the nitric oxide. That goes into our bloodstream. We vasodilate the microvasculature. We're moving fluids to and away, and the throbbing goes away.
Amazing. Yes. Does that make sense, guys? Because I'm sure all of my team are also thinking, why does the pain suddenly go away? Why do our patients suddenly become even more comfortable after receiving 1,000 microneedles by our dear Cheryl? So now we know why, Yeah. And let's go back to when we first introduced Celluma to our practice. So that was 2020 November, and we brought it in as we were just coming out of the lockdown. It was our
Right.
first welcome back into the practice. And there were a number of things that really drew us to bringing something brand new and innovative into this, into the clinic. One of the first ones was basically us and our patients. And so we were breaking out, well, I certainly was, coming through a stressful period and wearing masks for 10 to 12 hours a day. So I was developing a lot of cystic acne, becoming very self-conscious. There was a lot of redness and inflammation, wearing that mask for 10 to 12 hours a day as well, normal. And that psychologically makes me not sleep at night.
Right.
So you're in a bit of discomfort in your own right. So can we translate that back again to Linda's question, that blue, red, and near infrared? Because I wanted the device for me. I also wanted the device to welcome our patients back and turbocharge, because I understood the activation of the mitochondria. And then the third thing was also you had the clear plastic sleeves that your company brought in post-pandemic that really made me feel so comfortable that I had a device that my patients could feel clean and hygienic coming back into my clinic.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And what you describe is sort of the perfect storm of external and internal events, because we're abusing the skin externally because of the mask, and we're creating the opportunities for bacteria to take hold and do their dirty work on the skin. But in a high stress environment like the last 2 years have been, we're producing a lot of adrenaline and a lot of cortisol, and our bodies aren't processing it properly, and so you've got a lot of crazy stuff going on inside of the body, and then we're not sleeping, and maybe we're not eating as well as we should, and basic wellness starts with nutrition, and so you had all of that stuff going on, and I don't want to sort of characterize it as a panacea, but light therapy can address so many of those things, including, when you use the Celluma over your face, you're going to trigger serotonin production in your brain.
Correct.
And that's going to help you sleep.
Yeah.
And if you're sleeping better, then, you can deal with things during the day better. Whether that's, how you're taking care of the kids because they can't be in class, or how you're taking care of the parents because you can't see them and they can't see you. I mean, the last 2 years has been nuts. and
I'm going to wave to a few people, actually. They're waving to you, Patrick,
okay.
so I'm going to break
I am waving back.
Hi, everyone.
So, I mean, that really has, COVID was a great time for us as a company because we found we could help a lot of people. And again, sort of going back to, what did I want as a professional legacy? I having a positive impact on what was going in COVID, whether that was, people putting the Celluma over their chest or over their back to knock down respiratory inflammation, or it was them, being able to have a Celluma treatment on their face when they couldn't see someone like Dr. Sherina. I mean, it was all good stuff.
Can I ask, with the endorphins that are released to make you feel good,
Yes.
that's a great thing maybe to do in the morning, but then you're saying with the release of serotonin,
Yes.
what would you advise? Would you say using it in the morning, or actually more beneficial using it before bed?
Well, there's benefits to both.
Okay. Kind of heard that. I wasn't sure which one was the best.
And a lot of it has to do with makeup,
Okay.
because you want to
Great
do
point.
light therapy on clean, dry skin.
Okay.
And so, when you're waking up in the morning, you can keep your Celluma by your bedside table and just sort of drag it up onto your face and snooze for another 30 minutes. But going to bed, you can do the same thing. You can put it over your face because you don't have your makeup on, and so that's the optimal for the light energy absorption. It's going to trigger the serotonin. It's going to relax you. The only downside to it is you might discover you wake up 3 hours later and you have this thing over your face, and it's like, whoa, where am I?
That's me. I'm the latter. And to be fair, to your point, Laura, I use it at night, and I've just been so conditioned to using it 4 to 5 times a week at night, because when I come home from work and I have my shower and I've cleansed my skin, it's a great opportunity for me to just switch off. And it forces me to switch off because my eyes are closed. I'm relaxed, I'm horizontal, and I'm out in about 4 to 5 minutes. I know I am. And I'm getting the benefits therapeutically to reset me, anti-inflammatory me, manage my inflammation, whatever I picked up during the day. And if I think about the analogy now of the electric car, so if you think of the electric car where you charge it overnight in your home nowadays, which we can do, we don't even need to go out to do that, and then we get into the car and we drive off, and we have a certain amount of mileage before we need to charge it up again. We drive it back home and we recharge it. And I think we're just becoming a little bit more like, that's how I look at it now.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally,
can we overcharge ourselves?
No, you can't. And that's the great thing about low-level light therapy, is the only effect it has is normalizing cellular function in cells that are not functioning normally.
So you can't overdo
Is that a
it then?
tautology? Yeah, there's no overdose. There's no overdose, and as Sherina just described, think of it as plugging in your cell phone at the end of the day. While it's going to be plugged in all night, it's fully charged in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then you have to deplete some of the energy for it to take more. So nothing's happening. Same thing with, if you were very motivated and you did light therapy, in the morning and the evening, every day, trauma. Someone who's been in a car accident and they have a lot of soft tissue trauma, use it as much as you want because you're not going anyplace anyway. But basically when you do a 30-minute treatment with the Celluma, you are going to have up to 48 hours of residual upregulated cellular activity. So it's kind of a every other day thing. Because that's how long it takes for that.
If you've got old scars, can it help old scars
No.
improve?
No. What it can do, however, is it can vitalize the tissue around the old scar, which may make the appearance of the scar less. But once you have scar tissue, you have to do something much more invasive. You have to do a microneedling, deep microneedling, or do laser ablation or something to get rid of that tissue. So for that reason, if you have some sort of dermal injury, you want to get the Celluma on it as quickly as possible, because you're not only going to help close the wound, you're going to help mitigate the effects of scarring.
Brilliant.
There we go. So we've got your 3 wavelengths of light. You've got your blue at the top of the surface. You've got your red, which comes down to the next level, your dermis, more or less. And then
we didn't talk about the infrared, did we?
And we're talking about near infrared, which goes all the way through now.
Yeah. So we're talking about wavelengths of light energy from about 400 nanometers to about 900 nanometers. And the reason for that is below 400 nanometers, the melanin in our skin prevents the absorption of light energy. That's why we get skin damage. That's down in the ultraviolet range. At the other end of the spectrum, above about 900 nanometers, the water in our tissue prevents the absorption of light energy, and so we get thermal events.
That's right.
And so some of you may be familiar with infrared lamps or infrared saunas.
Yes.
Those devices are using far infrared wavelengths, 10 times the wavelengths that we use in the Celluma. And warming the tissue is absolutely therapeutic because it's vasodilating, but it's not triggering the biochemical reaction we're after. It's not upregulating ATP. So infrared, because it's a long wavelength, is deep penetrating, down as much as 25 millimeters below the surface of the skin, down into the subcutaneous tissue. So we're using it to knock down inflammation, we're using it to knock down muscle spasm, we're using it to increase microcirculation. So it's kind of the aches and pains wavelength, but because it has such an impact on the microvasculature and helping knock down inflammation, it's near infrared is really good for everything.
Does that make sense, everybody? So it goes all the way down, and it's upregulating the mitochondria, but moving the circulation around. So take, for example, where we're doing 6, 8, 10, 12 hours of Zoom a day, where we're developing tight interscapular muscles, tight intercostals, unused muscles. Are you saying, Patrick, that if I put the Celluma on my skin at my back, it can help by increasing the tissue circulation?
Absolutely. Well, and there's two things going on there. One, muscles fundamentally need calcium to contract and ATP to release. ATP is the chemical that's made in the mitochondria. So if we're stimulating mitochondrial activity, we're providing muscles with the ATP they need to release. So that's sort of the first step. And now that the muscle's released, we're using the dissociation of nitric oxide to increase vascular activity to get more blood to the muscle.
Blood to the tissues.
Yeah.
Yes.
And now you can start working it out. You know,
Yes.
now you can start moving it again.
Yes.
But you know, if we abuse our bodies, they're going to react accordingly, which is in many cases muscle spasm.
So it's actually got 6 FDA clearances for pain.
10.
10
Oh,
now.
6 for pain.
For pain.
Yeah,
6 for pain. So that's
Yes.
huge. I mean, that's never been documented
Don't
before.
forget to address arthritis, because that was asked before.
Arthritis.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
So the Celluma is both FDA cleared and medically CE marked for treating both rheumatoid and osteoarthritis. And again, that's fundamentally an inflammatory condition. And so we're knocking down the inflammation in the joints so that they will move. And when you move, you
That's
in-
amazing.
It's not big enough. I need it everywhere.
we
That's-
have one for everywhere.
that's yeah, right here.
Linda, we have one for everywhere.
Yeah. But he doesn't come with it.
Yes.
Just for clarification.
Fine, we'll just take this room. But it's interesting because my youngest has just been diagnosed with long COVID and has had
Right.
quite severe backache and muscular ache.
Oh, poor
And
chap.
it dawned on me about 2 weeks ago, I had the Celluma in the house. And so I used it on his back just before sleep for 30 minutes, and it just really soothed him and calmed him. And within 2 to 3 days, where it had been lasting for ages, we noticed that he had full movement again.
Yes.
And he wasn't saying anything about backache. So I certainly, having seen how it works, and considering the fact that long COVID doesn't seem to be uncommon, especially in youngsters, and the fact that this is
Yes.
so safe to use on any member of the family, I think that this is something that should possibly be looked at, because I mean, I've seen it with my youngster.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now recognize that we don't make any claims about the
Correct.
Celluma
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
aren't medically credentialed, but from a pure science standpoint, you know, it's well documented, and several of our approved indications for use are for treating inflammation, whether it be inflammatory acne or increasing musculoskeletal microcirculation. But it makes that makes absolute sense to me.
Yes, likewise.
We've done a lot of reports over the
Yes.
last 2 years, similar reports, with people even claiming that it kept them out of hospital when they couldn't breathe, and their breathing was very difficult with COVID.
Yeah.
And to your point, Zana, I mean, that makes logical sense, as Patrick was saying, because when there was a fantastic paper that was presented, some studies at a AMWC conference in Monaco over the weekend by a scientist, and he was looking at tissue oxygenation, capillary perfusion of skin and other organelles, and looking at capillary density in someone who was hypoxic. And the capillary density almost went down by as much as 90% in the severely ill. So let's just take your son, for example, who didn't fortunately end up there, but has a degree of hypoxia in his or her tissues, then this is going to help to upregulate, open up the capillary circulation, hopefully again. So that's probably why they experience a betterment in their symptoms after the session. That's amazing. Thank you for the feedback. So just on that point, Patrick, so I think we've covered the blue, red, near infrared. Does everyone understand that one, the 3 modes that we have, and how they can better the patient? I'd love to know more about the positioning, because there's a few very solid, unique points about this technology compared to the others. And one of the key things is positioning. Do you mind elaborating on
No,
that?
not at all. And this was really the sort of aha moment
Yes.
for me 11 years ago, when as I was sort of studying the technology. Given my background in orthopedics, I was aware, post-op in orthopedics, that we wrap thermal devices over the surgical site, both cold and warm, thermal devices to manage pain and accelerate healing. And it struck me intuitively that light energy would work the same way. If you were trying to treat somebody with light energy, you would want to wrap the device closely around the area of treatment. But at the time, most light energy devices were rigid flat panels that sort of hung over, you know, the patient or the area of treatment like a chip warmer. You know, it didn't make sense. And so it turns out that my intuition was supported by a law of physical optics called the inverse square law. And essentially, as light energy travels through space, it homogenizes, it mixes, and to get a therapeutic benefit, we have to have that discrete wavelength. And so the closer you can move the light emission to the surface of the skin, the less opportunity there is for that discrete wavelength to diminish,
yes,
and for the body to be able to absorb the light energy. So we set off to build a device that would position very, very closely to the surface of the skin, so we would get optimal energy absorption from that. But there's also a safety concern, because if what you're trying to do is deliver a therapeutic dose of light energy from a great distance, and when I say great distance, like 4 inches away from the skin, you have to have a very powerful device.
Yes.
Which means two things. One, is probably much more expensive, which sort of came back to our founding mission of making light therapy affordable. But if you move that much energy towards the skin, you actually can damage the tissue. You can overpower the tissue.
Sure.
You can activate the melanocytes and create hyperpigmentation.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to do that. So what we did was we designed the Celluma to deliver light energy right at the surface of the skin that would be both therapeutic and safe. And so, unlike any other light therapy device on the market, you can flex the Celluma, but when you flex it into a particular shape, it stays there.
Shape taking.
Yes.
It's
And
safe.
so that allows for optimal absorption of the light energy from an efficacy standpoint, but then also removes the potential risk of overpowering the tissue with a higher powered device.
That makes sense, doesn't it, everyone?
Fantastic.
Yes.
Brilliant.
So it's just having the right amount of energy to make it accessible to us, to be able to bring it into our clinics,
Right.
move it around the whole clinic, use it on anywhere we actually want to get the therapeutic benefits, the correct dose. And what we have learned so much is really getting it close to the skin. And I will put my hand up and say I was probably a couple of inches off at the beginning, and then I watched your video, Denise, your Celluma positioning video, and it taught me so much. And then it's just educating our patients again in clinic and at home to use it the correct way.
Yeah.
So that's really
And
key.
It really doesn't matter if you actually make contact with the
Nope.
skin.
No.
I was going to say,
Not at
just
all.
my nose is on it sometimes.
Yeah,
Likewise, Linda.
that's exactly where it should be.
That was the first thing I asked you about the safety aspect.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's so covered and so amazing.
Yeah.
That, you know, it gives you so much confidence.
And if I lay it on my back, because it gets warm, it sort of feels that it's doing its work as well, because it's, you know, generating heat.
Yeah, and so actually the thing about LEDs is they don't produce heat. That's why they last so long. It's actually the resistors on the circuit board that modulate the power to each LED that gets warm.
Right.
And
Well,
so-
it's nice, whatever it is. Soothing, definitely. Yeah.
So we've got
Don't bother me with the details. I'm having a good time.
So we've got the right energy, the dose, so to make it accessible and affordable, which is great. We've also then got the right dose. So the 30-minute dose is spot
Yeah.
on.
So yes, given the amount of energy that's emitted from the device, a 30-minute treatment will give you that 48 hours of
The 48 hours.
upregulated cellular activity. Now, as soon as you place the Celluma on the body, you're getting the therapeutic benefit.
Fabulous.
But it's sort of like going to the gym. You know, do I go to the gym and work out for 5 minutes, or do I go to the gym and work out for 30 minutes? You're going to get more benefit from the 30-minute workout.
Of course.
Same thing applies to the Celluma.
Sure. Is there any benefit with myself if you're saying we're going to get a 48-hour? using it twice a day, as Laura was saying, and I'm just going over that point again.
Well, it really the first filter is, are we dealing with a chronic condition or are we dealing with an acute condition?
I think I'm both, actually.
Okay. If it's a condition that evolved over time, then it's going to take longer
to
to
get it
resolve
back.
it,
Yes.
and doing more frequent treatment is probably not going to be beneficial,
Sure.
as opposed to if it's an acute issue, if it's some intentional dermal injury, if it's some sort of musculoskeletal trauma, more frequent treatment is potentially beneficial, and the good thing is it's not going to be harmful.
Got it.
If the body can't use the light energy, it just won't absorb it.
Great. That's very clear. So we have the right energy, we have the right dose in time, we've got the right positioning, so we can literally shape it over the face, the chest, the neck, because we're doing a lot of tech neck treatments. We can do a lot of décolletage treatments with that now as well, because this is an area that we often neglect, and I always say the face starts here and it finishes a little bit lower down than our chins. And then the next thing to also think about is its shape-taking properties, because that makes it very unique to a lot of other devices that I was potentially going to invest in. No disrespect to them, they're all fabulous. They're all fabulous. But this one makes it easy for me to bring it around my entire clinic.
Absolutely.
Shape-taking.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So can I ask a big question then?
Oh.
Will it make your hair grow back?
Ah,
Yes, if the follicle is still there, it will rejuvenate the follicle activity.
Follicle might be still there, but the follicle is still vital.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
It can be compromised,
yeah.
but still vital, not completely dead. So somebody that's completely bald, you can't help them. But
But if your hair is starting to thin,
Yes.
you should,
Which happens to everyone.
yeah.
Yes, it will help. And in fact, last summer we had a new version of the Celluma Restored, FDA cleared for hair restoration.
That's a biggie.
We're hoping that device will be medically CE marked here within the next 30 to 60 days. There's a huge paradigm shift going on in the medical device regulatory world right now in the United Kingdom and in the EU. Why I hesitated there is the UK is still operating under the standards of the EU when it comes to med device regulation, but I didn't want to not recognize that you're not in the EU anymore. As painful as that may be for some people. It's making things complicated for us. So that process is taking a little longer than it normally would because everybody's shifting to this new system.
yes.
So the Celluma as we know it now, is that suitable for to use
No,
on your...
no, this is a brand new.
I knew you were going to ask that, Linda.
This is
I've
a.
got another one now.
This is
It's a good point. It's
this-
a good point.
Well, that'll be okay. No.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a again going back to the science.
Yes.
It's still the same wavelength of red light energy that we use, but it's only red light energy, and the intensity of the light energy is different from any other program.
And will it look like a cap? Or will
No,
it be
it looks like our smaller Celluma. And again, because it's shape taking, you can just kind of roll it up and then stretch it back over the scalp, and it stays right there.
But this particular Celluma, the Celluma Restore,
Yes.
can also be used on other parts of the body.
Yes, because it also has an anti-aging program and it has the aches and pains program.
Yes.
So it's kind of
Will
the
it make hair grow everywhere you put it?
only where hair is supposed to grow.
All right.
Do that.
I mean, and again, that goes back to the only thing that light therapy does is reestablish normal cellular activity. So if you weren't, if there's, a place where hair doesn't grow, light therapy doesn't make it grow there.
It's a great
No,
question.
it's a
very
great
fair
because
question.
people worry about that. I'm going to use it over
Very
my
fair.
face and it's going to make the hair grow. No, it doesn't,
No,
because those cells aren't there.
No.
Yes, but it's a really great point because we are certainly seeing a lot more. I'm certainly becoming a lot more aware of patients presenting with thinning hair, thinner hair, a lot of hair shredding, a lot of that presenting also at much younger years, 23, 26. We've got a number of patients with that. And so we're certainly moving into a lot more hair restoration treatments here at the clinic. And I think what drives me to your device in particular also is this constant innovation and looking into the science to see how it can improve new indications for treatment.
Yeah, I mean, one of the leading causes of hair loss is stress. And
Correct.
who hasn't been stressed lately?
Absolutely.
So it doesn't surprise me that you're not seeing more of that in the clinic.
And a lot of hair loss through COVID as well.
This is
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So watch this space. It'll be interesting to see where it comes here in the UK. I've got a few other questions, but does anyone have anything in particular whilst I get the questions
I've got a
from the
question.
crowd?
Can I ask about the pulse setting? What
The
is
pulse.
the difference between having it pulsing and not?
Great question, and that's again another unique feature to the Celluma. What we know from our friends in the laser world is when you pulse the delivery of light energy, it gives the cell a greater opportunity to absorb the light energy. I mean, basically, light energy does four things. It's reflected when it hits a surface. It's absorbed when it hits a surface. It scatters when it hits a surface, or it transports, which means it just goes past. And so one of the things that happens is when you deliver light energy in what's called constant wave or continually, you have a lot more transportation of the light energy. Whereas if we pulse it, we give the cells little rest periods between, and we're talking about, milliseconds. But enough that we know that the light energy is absorbed at a higher rate when it's pulsed than when it's not. So that's why the Celluma, all of the programs default to pulse. You can turn the pulse off because some people report that they're sensitive to flashing lights.
Yes.
The pulsation is actually between 80 and 800 times a second. So it's actually not even perceivable to the human eye. What you sort of see a twinkling like Christmas tree lights, but it's a high-speed pulse. And so you can turn that off and you get the same amount of energy, but it's likely that your cells are not absorbing as much energy.
Great point. And anyone else?
Question on when you said there's 4 different ways the skin absorbs reflects.
Right.
And you also said completely clear skin, or would it be helpful when you're talking about the light then maybe refracting or reflecting? Would a serum not be good to put it in because it would divert the actual?
Yeah.
That
so
is a great question.
So 2 things. Anything you put on your skin has the potential of reflecting back the light energy and diminishing the dose delivered to the underlying tissue. That's even water-based or clear serums. And we've done testing to know that the light absorption can be dramatically reduced by topically applied products. Second, there are people who will tell you that there's a synergistic benefit between light energy and topical products. And we've not seen any clinical literature that substantiates that, and we know in general the molecules in those products are just too big to be pushed through the tissue. That's why we do microneedling, because we create vias in the tissue to push the product through. And so, but we continue to be open to that concept, but so far we haven't found anything in the science that tells us it's actually there. The third thing is that if you do your light therapy before you put your products on, theoretically, and I say theoretically because I haven't seen a study, the products are going to be more bioavailable to the tissue because you've vitalized the tissue.
Yeah.
So our recommendation is always, do your cleansing, do your exfoliations, do your extractions, get the skin clean, dry, and open. Do your light therapy, and then put your products on.
That's a great point. So I would take to that by saying clean the glass so the light can go in. That's it.
And
Yes.
if you're doing it in the morning, it won't matter that you put night cream on from the night before. Or is it still better to wash your face?
It's better to wash
wash.
your face.
Right.
Yeah.
Wash. And also there's a degree of the products from the night before, so they would have worn off and they're not going to absorb any deeper, Linda. And there's also a little bit of oil that might have come across at night, especially in the summer times. So good to clean the skin before that light goes through. That actually answers one of the questions that I was sent through during the week. Will the Celluma light improve these serums that I'm using on my skin overnight? So that's a great point, Laura. Anybody else got any questions? I've got a whole list here. Rafia?
Can you use all of the 3 settings at once for the full 30 minutes? Yeah, consecutively.
No, because what we've done is in every program in the Celluma, except the hair restoration program, we're using all 3 wavelengths of light simultaneously, but at different intensity levels based upon the condition, the depth of the condition we're treating. So for instance, in our acne program, we're using blue light dominance because we want to use the blue light to kill the P. acne or the C. acne bacteria, sorry. But that doesn't do anything for the existing lesions. For the existing lesions, we're delivering red light to knock down the inflammatory process, and even a little infrared light to increase the circulation, so we're moving fluids to and away. You know, in the absence of the red light and the near infrared, the only thing we're doing is cutting off the source of new breakouts. And so we want to be dealing with, you know, the present as well as the future when treating acne. And it's the same thing, you know, it's like blending fine wines, you know.
Thank you.
Let's say you have to wear the glasses, the goggles.
You don't have to.
Don't have to. Okay.
The level of dose that we're delivering is orders of magnitude lower than the light energy safety, international light energy safety standards. There's never been a report of an adverse event with light energy at the levels that we admit creating any sort of retinal damage. And so, but the fact of the matter is some people are just more sensitive to light. And so I always try and get someone to use the Celluma without eye protection.
Yes.
Because we want to be treating the eyelids, obviously.
Yeah.
And if I can get them for about 30 seconds just to be with it, it's usually okay for the rest of the 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, I've probably demonstrated the Celluma tens of thousands of times at trade shows, and very rarely can I get someone not comfortable without eye protection. Yeah, so it's really not eye protection, it's eye comfort. You know, it's for comfort, not safety.
Yes, and extending to that on a clinical level here in the clinic and at home, we see a lot of patients who are not ready for botulinum toxin injections or muscle relaxant injections. They're not ready for facial injectables, and they want eye revitalization. A lot of patients are Zooming, they've been at home working 12 hours a day, staring at screens. A lot of patients are coming in with sensitized eyes, puffy, and just dull as well. So what we're finding here in the clinic, we carry out a lot of high-tech facials, lymphatic therapy, and what we really want to do is address the health of the tissue and make the tissues respond rather than just filling them or injecting them. And by using the Celluma on its own, after a treatment or at home, you're really seeing the tissue quality of the eye area come to life again. And we know that because we've had patients similar to yourselves coming in presenting with inflamed skin, disrupted skin barriers, rosacea. I think we showed you that before and after. And I always was under the thinking of we need to wait 6 weeks for each skin cycle, 12 weeks, and you know, I'd normally give them 90 days to get a really nice rehabilitated result. And just with excellent home care, strategic, and a 6-week wraparound of the Celluma, we're getting some fantastic skin revitalization in 6 weeks. So I do believe that everything that Patrick has taught me, actually I've not only met you twice, but taught me virtually, in the acceleration of the healing, the upregulation, the activation of our own cells that have been naturally declining with age, we're actually making our patients respond so much faster, which is fabulous. Yeah.
Excellent.
Anybody else?
Just a quick question on the sort of
Sure.
warranty if the LED lights don't
Great
work.
point.
Or, it's
Yeah,
just that
2-year
how
warranty.
they get fixed.
2-year warranty. Again, we have offices here in Elstree, and they can help with any problems, of which there are very few. I think the warranty return rate on our 10 years of product in the field is less than 0.5%. The product's designed very robustly. There's just basically two things you can't do. You can't put full body weight on it. You can't stand on it or sit on it or lay on it. And then you can't fold or crease it.
Yes.
You can wrap it as much as you want, but folding it has the potential of damaging the circuitry. If you do that, you will get years of use. We've done accelerated testing to 3 years with no degradation of the device. The LEDs themselves are life rated for 100,000 hours.
100,000.
They don't start.
100,000.
They,
Coming to the end then.
yeah. They don't start to degrade for 10,000, which we figure is about 20 years of use. So we like to say that we'll all burn out before the Celluma does.
It will outlive us.
Yeah.
Good. I hope that answers your question, Saffron. And just going back to that point on rosacea skin, we see a lot of patients with acneiform rosacea, disrupted skin barrier. Are they the right candidates to have this regularly, Patrick? I get asked this a lot.
Well, first I have to say that Celluma is not regulatory cleared for treating rosacea, nor is any other LED device on the market. And that mainly is because there's not good scientific studies on it. Having said that, we know rosacea is kind of a mystery condition. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on there. But we know it's inflammatory based.
Correct.
And so we know it responds to LED, as we saw this morning in your treatment room. And so the answer to your scientific question is yes. The question the answer to your treatment question is I can't say that about the Celluma.
But we do see those results improve every single day.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And when did you bring Celluma into the UK? What year was that?
We've been here for 4 years.
Since 2018.
Yeah.
Because I first saw your product at a demo stand with Paul Cohen, and I walked past it. I remember thinking, wow, and I remember thinking my usual cynical self, really?
Yeah. That's what I thought.
First was wow, and then Paul's actually here, so good afternoon, Paul. He's virtual, everyone. And I remember
he's not here.
Paul is there. Hello, Paul. Wave to us if you're there, Paul. He will. And I walked past Paul, and at first I said wow, and then the second one was really. So, and Paul introduced me, he's waving, to the science, and he showed me the literature, he showed me the clinical, results that they were getting, and I watched from afar. I watched, and I had to take time learning and understanding, why this was going to be different for our patients, why this was going to be different for me, why was it going to be different from other innovations that there were out there. And I think what again stood out was the science and all the points that you talked about. It's shape taking, flexible, close to the skin, the right dose, the right time, not too much, but just specific. And then, in 2019 at the Aesthetic Awards, your technology won product innovation.
Were you there?
We were there.
Did you see me?
We did. Yes, Denise.
Yeah,
Product
that was
innovation.
very exciting. So we won Product Innovation of the Year, which was amazing for us. We'd won, at this point we have over 50 aesthetic awards, but that particular award was really different because we won over every single category. And if you think about all the categories and all the huge companies that are involved in submitting new products, it was an astonishing award for us. So I was beside myself with excitement. So we hadn't met at that point. That's a pity, but it was a great night for us and a great accomplishment.
I want to say congratulations.
I'll share one story with you. I was watching Denise give a lecture, and a woman in the audience had asked whether or not the Celluma would do anything for frozen shoulder. There's this condition that doesn't allow you to raise your arm up, much above that. And so she had a treatment at lunchtime and came back, and in the afternoon session, she had her hand up, and Denise said, "Yeah, do you have a question?" She said, "No, I'm showing you that my shoulder works now." So I actually avoided rotator cuff surgery by using the Celluma. I had a nearly fully detached supraspinatus tendon in my rotator cuff, and very common repetitive motion injury for guys over the age of 50. And I actually scheduled my surgery. I said, let's do this 30 days from now, and between now and then I'm going to use the Celluma twice a day. And I canceled the surgery, and we did a 6-month MRI follow-up, and there's no tear.
No tear.
So which means that the original injury was in
We need that
vascularized
picture,
tissue,
Denise.
because
That would
it's
be a
not going to
good
heal.
picture.
So it works on rotator
Congratulations.
cuffs. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, my Thor and Spartacus send their regards to you both
Okay.
as well.
Great.
They're enjoying it at home as we speak. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for all of your time, for spending with us as well, and taking the time to come and join our patients here today. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Really appreciate it.